It's just food that was produced to eat that doesn't get eaten. That's it. It's food waste or it's food loss, but it is interchangeable. Food waste is an environmental issue, period. When we put food in landfill, it creates greenhouse gases and methane and is a direct contributor to our climate crisis, which we are in. And it's true, by reducing like 1% of food waste for a business, they can boost their revenue by 4%. The majority of the foods don't require a best before date at all. It's all voluntary.
Hi, welcome to our podcast, The Zero Hunger Project. I'm Suman Roy,
I'm Stacey Neal.
and today we are going to have a very crucial conversation, a conversation around what we understand is one of the major contributor to zero hunger, especially in developed countries. And today we have one very special guest who's a very good friend of mine, Lori Nikkel, who's going to talk a little bit about the problem. Stacia, do you want to introduce Lori?
I would love to. Lori Nikkel is a visionary leader and champion of social and environmental justice issues related to food. She's an international thought leader on perishable food recovery with a strategic focus on increasing awareness of the negative impacts food loss has on climate. Lori's guidance has changed the way Canada manages food loss and waste. She is a co-author of The Avoidable Crisis of Food Waste, a world-first evidence-based research project that identifies where, why, and how much food is lost and wasted across the supply chain, originally published in 2019 and updated last year. She has co-authored Canada's Invisible Food Network that identifies the extent of food support to charities and nonprofits across the country, and Wasted Opportunity, which dives deeper into food loss and waste in the food industry, the types of surplus edible food, and proposed solutions. A favored media contributor, Lori is sought after for her commentary and recommendations. She was globally recognized by the United Nations as Canada's food hero, is a Clean 50 recipient, and has been recognized as one of Canada's women of influence. Lori was named one of Waterstone Capital's most admired CEOs, and in 2022 was appointed to the Order of Ontario. As CEO of Second Harvest, Lori has developed a national food recovery network that redistributes healthy surplus foods to thousands of communities in need. Welcome.
Lori, thank you so much for joining us. This is
That's quite an intro, by the way.
exact.
That was quite an intro. That was a lot. Shorten that down.
No, I think
No, that's what you've done,
I think
and
it's
this is
incredible.
not even scratching the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure I've known you for a while. So, Lori, my first question to you, and this is primarily for our listeners. We hear the term food waste, we hear the term food loss. Is this the same thing? What is the difference?
This is a great question because I would say 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, people were defining it differently. And still, there is a defined food loss, food waste in some areas. But I'm also a member of the Standards Council of Canada, and we're working with ISO on standards. And basically, it's all the same thing, right? Like, let's not confuse ourselves. I think calling it two things confuses a lot of people. It's just food that was produced to eat that doesn't get eaten. That's it. It's food waste or it's food loss, but it is interchangeable.
How bad is the problem in Canada and globally?
Well, I think it's $1 trillion problem globally.
So bad.
It's very bad. It's very bad in developing countries and developed countries for different reasons. In Canada in 2019, we were wasting 58% of all the food produced for us. So that includes imports, but not exports, but someone else was eating it. So 58% in 2019. We did the research again this year, and it has decreased, which is fantastic, to, 46.5%. So while a decrease, it's still almost half the food. And what's alarming about that is there is a distinction between edible and non-edible food, right? So that you're going to always have some kind of waste. But of all of that, 41.7% is perfectly edible food. It's enough food to feed 17 million Canadians 3 meals a day of great food. So we do have a significant problem in this country.
How do you calculate that? Food waste, food loss. How do you know?
Well, we hire experts. So the truth was in 2019, I was wondering, I assumed that somebody had done this research, right? But we were all using this old FAO data, and it wasn't primary data. It was kind of guesstimates. And so that's why we commissioned Value Chain Management International to support us with this research. So that's what they do internationally, is they look for, and it's not it's about waste, but more from an economical drive. Like if you're wasting food, it's silly because you could be making money on it. So we hired them again to work on it. And they work across the supply chain with producers, manufacturers, at farm, at retail, in restaurant. There's a report that you can find on the Second Harvest website. There's a roadmap, which is kind of shortened version. But then we also have the technical report. So that's lots and lots of pages where you can walk through the entire methodology of how we got to these numbers.
Which is fascinating because I've heard this question many times when I quote your numbers, Lori. How do you guys figure that out? So this is a great answer. Thank you so much for talking about it. So hearing the numbers, Lori, so this is a significant problem to attaining zero hunger globally. Now, the governments really took this seriously and had processes in place to minimize it as much as possible. What percentage of people could be fed?
Well, I think this is where you and I are really going to disagree, Suman. I actually don't think food waste should have anything to do with hunger at all. Food waste is an environmental issue, period. When we put food in landfill, it creates greenhouse gases and methane and is a direct contributor to our climate crisis, which we are in. Now, in the interim, while we work on solutions to prevent it, because we want to prevent this from happening at all, for environmental reasons, for social reasons, for economic reasons, like we shouldn't have this. We'll always have a little bit, but we shouldn't have this at all. When we talk about hunger is a policy issue. I mean, they both are, but that should be people have enough money in their pockets that they can go buy the food they need for themselves and their families. So this is kind of like a Band-Aid right now because we don't have proper policy anywhere, apparently, to ensure people can get the food that they need.
100%. But if we are actually preventing food from getting wasted, do you think that with that extra food out in the grocery stores or wherever it might be, it will possibly economically lower the cost of food that will make food more affordable for community members? What do you think on that?
It should.
Technically speaking,
You know who, Lori, comes to my mind when we talk about this particular topic is Sylvain Charlebois. Certainly talking about the cost.
It's $58 billion is the value of the food that's wasted every year, right? So if we weren't wasting that food, should it decrease prices at the grocery store? I mean, not should it. Could it? Technically, yes. Will it? I doubt it. And it's true. By reducing like 1% of food waste for a business, they can boost their revenue by 4%.
and why is that not enough of an impetus for somebody to take that up? Like, I don't understand, just from a straight dollars and cents. Who do we need to call? Let's call somebody and find out.
To be fair, I do know some of it. A couple things. One is you have to admit that you have a problem to begin with, right? Once you admit you have a problem, which I think industry is much better at than they were 5 years ago, saying, yeah, we do have a problem. And we need to implement strategies to reduce waste. Then you have to identify what are the strategies. And if you're in a really large business, there's going to be multiple strategies. So that's a big shift for everybody, right? Like it's just change is difficult. So that's in the big ones. In the smaller ones, there's usually a capital cost or an upfront cost investment. First aid to determine what are the problems that you have, where are they, what are the solutions? The solutions are going to cost money. So it's a pre-spend. In the end, you're going to save money. But when you're a small, mid-sized business, which is most of Canada, quite frankly, it's hard. And they're busy doing their jobs, right? Like everybody's busy already doing their actual jobs to make money. I mean, without some kind of supports for the smaller businesses, it's almost impossible to measure.
Can you talk to us a little bit about Second Harvest and just explain that came to be? And in case somebody doesn't know about it, it's a pretty well-known name at this point.
So I'm just going to I'm not going to talk about 40 years ago because this is not the same organization. I'm going to start when we became Second Harvest Canada, because I think that was an iteration that changed really who we are fundamentally. But our goal has always been, we have 4 pillars, but our first one is operational. How do we make sure that any kind of surplus food that exists in the supply chain anywhere gets redirected to charities and nonprofits? And so we work with thousands of food businesses, thousands of nonprofits and charities across the country to make sure we're making that connection. And we do it a couple ways. I think 90% or like 87% is perishable. So we're very focused on produce, dairy, and protein. These are the hardest foods to access when you're low income. And so we really want to make sure those are the foods that we're redirecting to people. We have a fleet in Toronto. We have a fleet of trucks. So if you're in Toronto, you'll see our trucks going by all the time.
Yes, that's what I mean by well known. As a Toronto kid, I'm used to seeing Second Harvest trucks all over the place.
100%. So you will, they are beautiful trucks, really well branded, stunning. But across the country, what really impacted us and changed the way we did business was in 2017, we developed an app. And this app was to connect food directly to a charity. And the impetus really was we had a fleet in Toronto. And we're like, well, why are we sending a truck to go pick up food from Starbucks? We're not going to do that. That's environmentally wrong. It's not a good use of time. But the food is still needed. And we don't want it to go to waste. So how do we make sure we can capture that food? And that's when we started this app that does exactly that. So if a food business has food, they put, the category, what it is, the amounts, and pickup time and all that stuff. And then a nonprofit that needs food will say, okay, I'll take it.
That's so good. It's so good.
Yes. And it takes the fleet and warehouse out of it, takes some environmental costs out of it. But as it grew across the country, like 80% of all the food, and I think it was almost $400 million worth of food last year alone, is connected through the app, because the app is also great for data. And so started with small, but now farms are on it, manufacturers are on it. Like if they have food, they're on it because beautiful data inside of that.
That's amazing. And we at Feed Scarborough has been on the app and Get Your Trucks In because of our volume. And I love that app. The only complaint I have is the foods go so fast, which is, I think, a good problem to have.
No, it's a bad problem. We need to work on that to make sure that there's more food going through the app, because you're not alone, where there's just so much need. There's so much need. So let me just tell you the other three pillars. So again, research, which we just talked about. We're all about research. Let's understand what the problem is so we can fix it. So we do it on food waste. We do it on understanding how many nonprofits are across the country so we can support them. There's lots of research. We've recently did the cost of conflict, which is tariff research and how that's going to impact the nonprofit sector. So that's research. Then we do advocacy. We want to do policy change. Let's fix the problem. And finally, training and engagement. So we do a ton of training, food safety training, food rescue training, food waste training with corporate, with nonprofits, so that we can build the change. Like, what do you need to change? Here, we'll give you all the information you need to help. So those are our four pillars.
Solid pillars. I get asked a lot from people how individuals can help. So I'm assuming through donations.
Money, money, money. I mean, right now, it is what it is. I'm a CEO of a charity. Of course, it's always money that we need, and food. So if there's a food business, we need you to know us. Get on the app. Get as much food as we can through that app so that we can, that's all I think about is get food and get money. So you can use that money to get the food to the people. So we don't buy food, right? This is all surplus. We buy a little bit of food when we're working in northern communities, really remote north, because the travel is so long. But this is all surplus, perishable food. It's not money buying foods.
No, that's awesome. So, Lori, and I know we just talked about a few seconds ago about your next meeting. And so when you're speaking to the decision makers in the governments of different level, what are some of your main key policy recommendations that you have made in the past or have been successful or on the way to? Any of those?
Yeah. So I was also a member of Canada's Food Policy Advisory Committee. So we got really into the weeds of a lot of things. I'm always about food waste, to be fair. And the only way we'll understand the problem is if we measure it. And I believe that we should be mandated to measure it, not like a carrot or a stick approach, right? Help businesses measure it so that we actually understand the extent of the problem, and then we can build in solutions. So we have committed that we would halve food waste by 2030. But if no one's measuring it except for Second Harvest, that's not right. I advocate for child nutrition. That was one of the things. And so that went incredibly well. I mean, it's received a lot more money, and I think it's really important. And Second Harvest has received funding so that we can support the charitable network that are supporting student nutrition with infrastructure costs. And the other one is, of all the food waste right now, we're really focused on 23% of that, of avoidable food waste, can be attributed to a best before date. A real misunderstanding of best before dates. I mean, I think something came out of, oh, I've forgotten the name of this report. Oh, and I sat and I spoke at it. It was government. Oh, I've lost my mind. Anyway, there was a recommendation from the Agricultural Committee to evaluate the removal of best before dates. And so that came out a couple of years ago. I don't think anything's happening there.
Is it because they're fictional?
It's because they have nothing to do with food safety. So in Canada, there's only 5 foods that expire. So there's an issue with the word expire, period. Like expire are 5 foods, and they're all based on the nutrient complement of that food. So it's baby formula, it's products like Ensure for like seniors, or it's protein bars. So if you're running a race, it's based on the nutrition in it, the nutrients in it. If you're running a race, I really need that. I want that to be real. And the other 2 are by prescription only. So if your doctor doesn't tell you about them, don't worry about it.
So it's basically 5 processed foods that expire. Yep. In the spirit of just calling things what they are.
And then anything that has a shelf life of 90 days or less requires a best before date. So that's everything you're going to find in your fridges, right? So milk and meat, the square of the grocery store. And we do need best before dates. 100% we do need them on products. But they're also very conservative. So I think we completely lost sense of our senses. And just like smelling food and knowing when it's bad. Like,
yeah, it was like, what about the good old sniff test?
Exactly, which is totally fine. And then the rest of the foods, which is the majority of the foods, or a lot of them anyway, don't require a best before date at all. It's all voluntary. Why? Well, I mean, to be fair, like there are products, it's a best before date, right? So your product might not be as nutrient dense in 3 years, or it might look a little different. It's not bad to eat. It's not unsafe to eat. It's just the quality isn't 100%. It might be 92% or 99%. Or so the quality does diminish. The nutrients will diminish. So it's like, if you eat a can of beans 20 years later, you're going to be fine. You're going to get the nutrients. Unlikely. So how do we work on products that absolutely do not require best before days? I think of things like salt. Salt that is 1 million years old. And yet, for some reason,
It was dug out of a hole. I think you'll be fine. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not a government policy, right? They don't have any policy on it. They're saying it's voluntary. We've got nothing to do with it. So we're working with retailers and others, and they're very on board. They see the problem as well. So to eliminate best before dates on 10 products and see what happens. But that has to come with a consumer campaign because, people believe that these foods are unsafe and they're not. And I get it. When people throw food away, if you don't understand it and you think this is going to make your family sick, then you chuck it. And I understand that feeling. It's wrong. You're wrong. But that means a ton of consumer education.
Yeah, because that's sort of a developed country problem. Right? There are not a lot of countries in the world that are like, this says I can't eat it, so I'm not going to eat it.
And that happens a lot with in Canada when newcomers come. They're like, but then they put us in a higher standard sometimes. Well, if the government of Canada says it must, even though it has nothing to do with the government of Canada, and the way we process food is different too, right? So you can't really blame anybody. Well, people that know better, you can.
It's sort of one of those Russian nesting doll problems. Like you open the doll and there's another doll inside.
Exactly. But it's a significant contributor, right? Like 23% is ridiculous. So also just smell your food when it's in the fridge.
Or get somebody else to smell it.
Sure.
Smell this. Does it smell weird? Should I eat it?
What's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Well,
like,
nothing
it's not
to me.
kill you.
You gotta spit it out.
So I'm getting somebody else to do it.
You gotta spit it out.
Exactly. I mean, be careful with certain foods for sure. If it's prepared meals, be extra cautious with that stuff, right? Because it's really more about the cold chain than anything else. If it's something that you're going to heat and you're going to cook anything that's bad out of it because you get it to the right temperature, then you're fine again. It's that stuff that's in the cold chain that's kind of cold that you're like, I don't know how long it's been out. That's the stuff to worry about.
Those are the things I'm extra suspicious about, to be honest.
So, Lori, you have a lot of knowledge on this. Is there any jurisdiction that you know of in the world who has successfully worked through this best before date issue?
No. Are there people doing way better than us? Yes. Like Canada is we're at the bottom of the list on food waste. Who are you going to call? Who's going to change it? Exactly. That's the problem. There is no one to call.
My neighbor, that's what I call. One door at a time.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. What exactly? So exactly. UK is doing much better than us on best before dates, but globally, everybody's kind of struggling with it. Like, how do we manage this? Even if you change the name of best before date to something else, it's going to confuse the consumer, right? So it's a problem that we're all trying to solve. And some things, if you just remove it, then it's a stock issue, right? Like, how do I move? How do I know? Well, you shouldn't have to care if it's never going to go bad at all. But it's a little more complicated than I would like it to be in terms.
I feel like it's a PR campaign. We need, as you said, like Twinkies. Everybody knows.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Twinkies aren't real food anyway. They're like hairspray in a tube with a little bit of sugar. But I mean, that's part of the cachet, is that they will literally never go bad.
They will never go bad.
Some way that you could kind of sensationalize the rest of actual whole food that way.
Well, the thing is about Twinkies is you're never going to eat a Twinkie for its nutritional value.
No.
I don't think anybody, to be fair, should eat a Twinkie for any reason whatsoever. Unless you're looking to get embalmed while you're still alive, in which case, have at it.
Hey, man, I've enjoyed a Twinkie in my time, you know.
I just wonder what it's done to me. You know what I mean?
Listen what I say, not what I do.
That's right. That's right.
All food in moderation, baby. All food in moderation.
So we normally ask people, like, what's the best case scenario? So it sounds like to me, for you, the best case scenario is getting people on side with dealing with this best before situation. What are some other best case scenarios for you in terms of?
Honestly, it's measurement. I mean, we've got an SDG goal of halving food waste. So how do you hit a goal that you don't measure? So that's number one for me. And it has been for a long, long time. And then best before dates, because it does impact that whole thing. Like, it does impact the amount of waste. So, and I think best before dates, to your point, we can have a lot of fun with that.
I think from a pop culture standpoint, there's a whole kind of niche of that hasn't been tapped at all, that I think would be really cool.
I agree. So there is work to do there. And I think we're working, that's actually getting closer to a removal than the measure the food waste pieces. So,
which is terrible, but okay.
But hey, man, wherever we can get a win, let's take the win.
Yeah, we can start with Rome, FAO.
Well, that's right. They're doing pretty well, actually. And then what is the question that you've done so many interviews and people ask you so many questions? What is the question nobody ever asked you that you wish they would?
It's a great question, but I don't have an answer for it. Like, still, even if they don't ask him, I'm still going to give them an answer.
Love it.
Good. How else are you going to get your job done, frankly?
Love it. So, Lori, what's next for Second Harvest?
Honestly, when I think as a charity and a nonprofit, as we all are, what's next is very different today than what I would have said even 3 months ago. Right now, we have to really understand how these tariffs are going to impact the entire food supply chain, how they're going to impact the charitable network. How do we all buckle down a little bit? And like, it means focus on your core business. Like, we do that already. Like, we have a very strong food rescue, but that's basically all I want to focus on is more food, more food, more food. So we have an app, which is great. And, I was just in Australia for ISO, but then I was in there with some other nonprofits that are similar to ours and in New Zealand, and they would like to license the app, as would someone in the UK. So that's something that I think we can still have ongoing, because that's not a big deal. But any big innovative outside of that, not this year. This year, we got to figure it out. We got to just stay steady, get more food, get more money, support more people. Like, that's it.
For this year or next, what is your goal, personal goal, to make sure that number from 46, where to bring it down to? Realistic goal. Like, realistically, you can achieve either end of this year.
I think we could probably get down to 20. And I don't know that we can get less than 20, maybe between 10 and 20, but I'd say 20 would be great. Like, that's a huge movement. So, and also, like, all of that is not edible, right? So that would include, bones and banana peels and other things that are not edible. That would be ideal. And then at the same time, because we do feed people with this food, is figuring out, okay, how do we make sure these people also have food? And that we have policies in place where people can just go out and buy food that they need.
No, that's absolutely amazing. Perfect. Lori, thank you so much for coming in. This is a great interview and some really good points. Our community who is listening to us or watching us, certainly they are listening about the food waste.
Yeah.
And they are listening about the best before dates.
That's incredibly
education.
Critical, actually. Information for the average person who is not in this circle. If this is not your daily conversation, I didn't know there were only 5 perishable foods. I didn't know, there are a lot of things that the average person doesn't know. So it's important, it's vital to have these conversations to educate people.
Absolutely.
Well, I had a good time as well. Also, important that people have fun. So there's that.
Thank you, Lori. This has been great.
Thanks very much.
Talk soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.